At the Mid-Autumn Palace banquet, I was shoved forward to perform for the tyrant. Just as I was about to offer a toast to muddle through, I suddenly heard the inner thoughts of the tyrant Huo Ye. Another toast, huh? Every concubine comes to offer a toast. I haven't even had a bite to eat all night. I've downed a dozen drinks already. Are you all trying to drink me to death? I'll have everyone in this harem executed sooner or later. My hand trembled, and I was so scared I spilled half the wine. I immediately swapped the wine cup for the food box I'd brought. Your servant is not skilled in song or dance, but I do have a knack for cooking. This bowl of fermented rice soup is warming. I invite your majesty to enjoy it. The head eunuch beside Huo Ye caught the signal, stepped forward, and took the food box. He tested it for poison with a silver needle before serving it to Huo Ye. Please, your majesty. Huo Ye's cold, stern eyes swept over the bowl of steaming rice soup. He raised his hand slowly, looking quite reluctant. As I stood there with my head bowed, waiting for the emperor to speak, I heard the mocking laugh of Concubine Yu. The imperial kitchen exists to serve the emperor his meals. For Attendant Jiang to bring out such scraps, is that not like showing off before a master? A smattering of laughter broke out across the banquet. Everyone looked at me with open hostility. Huo Ye has many concubines, all from illustrious families. I am the only one who got in based on my looks. But Huo Ye is so worried about the affairs of the court, he never sets foot in the harem. These noble ladies have been driven stir-crazy, so they conspired to pick one unlucky person to bully, and I am that unlucky person. Today, to get noticed by the emperor, every concubine pulled out all the stops, yet none of them caught Huo Ye's eye. Since they didn't gain anything for themselves, they only hoped to see me fare even worse. But if I hadn't heard Huo Ye's inner voice, I really would have believed them. Food. This is something hot to put in my mouth, something I have to chew to swallow. So there is hot food in this world after all. Then what are those cold bowls of porridge and vegetables from the imperial kitchen? Delicious. This cooking is much better than the imperial kitchens. With so many people in the palace, she's the only one with the sense to bring me something to eat. She's sharp. Why don't I recall an attendant Jiang in the palace? I stood in place, feeling as if my ears were about to explode. I resisted the urge to look up, my brow furrowing tightly. Why does the emperor talk so much to himself? Acceptable. Huo Ye took a small sip of the fermented rice dumpling soup. His expression remained cold and detached. He set down his spoon, giving a lukewarm standard evaluation. Thank you, your majesty. I bowed but muttered inwardly, still putting on an act. Acceptable indeed. I wonder who was just thinking fresh in his mind. Ever since I transmigrated into this book, I've had nothing good to eat or sleep. Fortunately, I have some decent cooking skills. I spend my monthly stipend on the small kitchen to feed myself. I knew I wouldn't be able to eat my fill at the palace banquet today, so I specifically made a bowl of rich, hearty fermented rice soup. It all ended up in the emperor's stomach. Consort Jiang, sit by my side. While the crowd below was whispering and snickering, Huo Ye's words instantly silenced the entire banquet hall. I looked at Consort Jia, who was sitting to Huo Ye's left. My mind was filled with question marks. Is my rice dumpling soup good enough to earn me the same status as a favorite concubine? But I dared not question the emperor's command. I could only bite the bullet under the gaze of hateful glares, and slowly took my seat to Huo Ye's right. The concubines below were gnashing their teeth in pure jealousy. If they had known that bringing a bowl of soup could catch the emperor's eye, why would they have bothered practicing their talents for months? Dullard. I was sitting there stiffly when I heard Huo Ye's cold inner voice ring out again. Dullard. Was he talking about me? I looked over at Consort Jia, who was chatting, giggling, and fluttering about before Huo Ye. I lowered my head even further. Fine, I'll be a dullard then. I don't have a general for a father fighting on the front lines. So how could I have the nerve to be flirtatious before the emperor? Although I haven't been in this book long, I've watched plenty of palace drama shows. Someone like me, without special talents, without imperial favor, and with no family background. Once I start drawing attention to myself, I'll just end up as cannon fodder, doomed to an early exit. I really want to live a little longer. The performances were beginning again below. However, Lady Yi, who was currently dancing, was quite daring and novel. Dressed in an exotic Western region's outfit, her dance was seductive. A large expanse of her fair skin was boldly left exposed. Her chest was soft and alluring. Even as a woman, I couldn't help but want to lean in. I couldn't help but mutter to myself again, does the emperor really not like women? Ever since I transmigrated into this book, I haven't seen Huo Ye summon anyone. Just as I was wondering, that deep, gravelly voice echoed in my head again. So big, so tempting. I was jolted by the thought. I thought the emperor was finally planning to favor Lady Ye, but when I turned my head, I realized Huo Ye was staring straight at the plate of crab in front of him. The supreme ruler, the monarch of the land. The way Huo Ye was looking at those crabs right now was as aggressive as if he were eyeing a neighboring country's territory. It has been so long since I've had crab. Can't Wang Degui take a hint? and peel a crab for me to eat. Wang Degui is the head eunuch who has served Huo Ye for years. Everything in his daily life and diet goes through him. I watched Huo Ye's resentful gaze and felt nothing but pity for the emperor. To be an emperor and watched all day long and not even be able to peel a crab in public. Being emperor certainly isn't comfortable. Sister Yi, your dance is certainly interesting, but your attire is too revealing. It is really not appropriate for this occasion. After the dance ended, Consort Jia was the first to criticize Lady Yi's performance. Everyone is fighting to be the first consort to spend the night with him, no matter how much they pretend to be like sisters. When it comes down to this, they'd fight tooth and nail. Consort Jia grabbed Huo Ye's arm, refusing to let his eyes linger on Lady Ye any longer. Your Majesty hasn't eaten much tonight. These water spinach are delicious. Do have some, Your Majesty. With that, Consort Jia placed a few greens onto Huo Ye's plate. Palace meals are always bland, especially the emperor's. In order to keep the mind clear, fatty or heavy foods are never served. I don't want these greens. I get a headache just looking at anything green. As the supreme ruler, don't I even have the right to eat meat? Are the crabs served for the Mid-Autumn Festival just for decoration? Where did my crab go? Huo Ye looked down and saw a few crabs missing from the plate. A moment later, a pale, slender hand reached out. Snow-white crab meat and orange roe were perfectly picked out and arranged inside the crab shell. The steaming meat looked incredibly savory. I had put in quite a bit of effort, using the tools to carefully extract the meat. If it were me, I'd have just used my teeth. Please enjoy, Your Majesty, I said, respectfully handing over the shell. My expression remained respectful, without a hint of sycophancy. I had no intention of competing for his favor like the others. I had simply overheard Huo Ye's inner thoughts, and I genuinely felt he was a bit pathetic. Besides, I was just hoping that if the emperor was in a good mood, maybe he could transfer me away from Jinhua Palace. I just don't want to endure Consort Yu's bullying all day anymore. Wang Degui, I've kept you by my side for so many years, yet you lack the perception of a mere noble lady. Why don't you hurry up and peel a few more? Do you really think one is enough for me? I heard his inner thoughts clearly. Yet when Huo Ye took the crab shell, he remained entirely calm. His sharp, defined features betrayed neither joy nor anger. He picked at the crab meat with slow, graceful movements, showing none of the excitement he displayed in his thoughts. Truly well hidden and wickedly charming. Seeing that her water spinach had been ignored, noble consort Jia gnashed her teeth in anger. I remained silent and started preparing the rest of the crab for Huo Ye. Anyway, given my low rank, delicacies like this never actually reach my plate. Sucking on my fingers after the banquet is still better than just watching. Huo Ye ate slowly. By the time he finished one crab, I had already finished peeling 3. Eating this slowly, who could ever tell he actually likes them? No wonder head eunuch Wang never peels crabs for him. Just as Huo Ye was about to reach for a second crab, Wang Degui suddenly jolted as if brought back to life and hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Crab is cold in nature and should not be overeaten, he said. At those words, Huo Ye withdrew his hand and didn't glance at the crabs again. I lowered my head, rubbing my red and swollen fingers, while his inner thoughts went wild again. I'll have Wang Degui beheaded sooner or later. An emperor shouldn't have his preferences guessed, but that doesn't mean you should let me starve. Noble Lady Jiang has already peeled 3 crabs. Who knows whose belly those are going into now? The palace banquet drew to a close. It was nearly 9 p.m. I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open. I clutched my sleeves tightly, taking advantage of a moment when no one was looking. I had already stuffed all 3 crabs into my sleeves. It has been 3 months since I transmigrated into this book. And finally, back at the palace, I might get something good to eat. Your Majesty, the Empress Dowager has commanded that you must select a consort for the night. Wang Degui stepped forward carrying a wooden tray. There were a dozen or so green tally plaques listed on it. Huo Ye had been on the throne for 3 years. Aside from the kin planted by high-ranking court officials and one selection process, the harem was quite full. But using the excuse that his position wasn't stable after just taking the throne, Huo Ye spent every night in the imperial study. Not a single consort had ever seen what his sleeping robes looked like. Though the Empress Dowager was not his biological mother, she still cared about the continuity of the dynasty and heirs. Tonight, she had brought the matter of choosing a consort out into the open. Discuss it later. Return to the palace, Huo Ye said, his face full of impatience. He stood up, flicked his sleeves, and walked away. The consorts, who had just been eagerly hoping to be chosen, instantly grew cold and looked full of disappointment. They had all been selected for the palace in the prime of their youth. They had status and wealth, but what good was that if they were to live like widows? Xiao Zhao, come rub my waist. I'm exhausted. As soon as I returned to my west side hall, I started fussing and calling for my maid to come serve me. Xiao Zhao was the maid who accompanied me from my family's home in Jiangnan. She wasn't very clever, but she was loyal. I'm here. How did you get so tired, mistress? My rank was low, the second to last kind of low. I didn't even have the qualifications to bring a maid to the palace banquet. Naturally, Xiao Zhao didn't know that I had sat beside the emperor for an hour without daring to budge. But before Xiao Zhao could lay a hand on me, the hall door was kicked open. Lady Jiang. Consort Yu requests your presence. The person who arrived was Kuai, Consort Yu's headmaid. She looked at me with an arrogant expression, as if she were the mistress herself. Xiao Zhao stomped her feet in anger. How can you just barge into a mistress's bedchamber like that? I pursed my lips and pulled Xiao Zhao behind me. I've watched plenty of palace intrigue dramas, and I know that to servants, a low-ranking, unfavored consort isn't really a mistress at all. I could guess that Consort Yu calling for me definitely wasn't for anything good. It was only because I had sat next to Huo Ye at the banquet tonight, surely. A quarter of an hour later, I was kneeling on the carpet in the main hall of Jinhua Palace. Fortunately, the carpet cushioned my knees, so it didn't hurt too much. Lady Jiang, do you know what you did wrong today? Consort Yu sat in the primary seat, looking down haughtily at me, whose simple appearance couldn't hide my natural beauty. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She had cut off most of Lady Jiang's supplies, so why were her clothes still so plain? Yet she still caught the emperor's eye and was kept by his side. I do not know. Noble Lady Yu, please enlighten me. Noble Lady Yu let out a cold scoff. Naturally, your fault lies in your shameless attempt to curry favor. I summon the servility expected of a lowly worker. You are right to reprimand me, Noble Lady Yu, though I am not convinced. I merely served a bowl of sweet dumplings and peeled a crab. How can that possibly be called currying favor? If others were too blind to see that His Majesty was hungry, surely bringing him a bit of food shouldn't be such an eyesore. Since you acknowledge your error, then kneel outside the hall for the rest of the night to reflect properly. The entire night, I was reluctant, but I still forced a submissive look and agreed. I simply must find a way to move out of the Jinhua Palace. But before I could even stand to go kneel outside, an imperial household eunuch rushed in breathlessly. Lady Jiang is not in her own quarters. Why are you here at Noble Lady Yu's place? I've been searching everywhere, my lady. Great news. His Majesty has summoned you to serve him tonight. Spend the night with the Emperor. My mind shattered into pieces at the thought. As I turned my head, I met the gaze of Consort Yu, which was filled with jealousy. If serving a bowl of dumplings was considered currying favor, then once I returned from serving him tonight, wouldn't I be branded with the blame for turning the harem upside down? My lady, don't delay. His Majesty is already waiting. Urged on by the little eunuch, I stood up and followed him out with a completely blank mind. All I ever wanted was to leave Jinhua Palace and live somewhere far away all by myself. To stay away from the trouble, His Majesty hasn't stepped foot in the harem for 3 years. Isn't it rather strange to summon me just because of a bowl of dumplings? I was halfway there when I suddenly realized this is wrong. I haven't bathed or changed my clothes. I didn't even ride in the imperial carriage for the favored concubines. Is this how carelessly he summons a concubine for the first time? On the way, the little eunuch explained as he followed along. My lady, don't harbor any doubts. It was a bit rushed tonight, but you are receiving a special favor that no one else has. Let me give you a hint. His Majesty is not in the best of moods. You must be very careful with your words and actions. The little eunuch swallowed hard, looking at my frail frame with a hint of worry. Tonight, His Majesty simply couldn't defy the Empress Dowager. He had looked through the selection tablets from the household office, and in the end, he named only Lady Jiang. You must know that in the past, Noble Lady Yu had used silver, specifically to have my name tag removed. But after tonight, it is unclear whether Lady Jiang will make a name for herself overnight or get thrown into the cold palace. After all, the Emperor is clearly in a foul mood right now. His Majesty is prone to a bad temper. While he wouldn't go as far as killing a servant, when he is angry, he is known to smash things or kick out in frustration. A lowly attendant like you probably couldn't even withstand half a kick from him. Yes, thank you for the heads up, Gong Gong. I entered the hall of mental cultivation, my mind still swirling in a daze. Since you're here, why are you just standing there? Huo Ye muttered. And only then did I move with heavy steps and lower my head to approach. So annoying, all they know is flipping plates. I can barely get a full meal. Where would I find the energy to produce a grandson for the Empress Dowager? This is my life now. I might as well not be a man. I have no energy to be having children. Attendant Jiang wasn't bad at cooking dumplings and peeling crabs for me. Maybe I should just find an excuse to have Consort Yu take her back. I really have no energy. I'm sorry, but this won't work. Before he could finish, I flopped onto my knees, my eyes brimming with panic. Your Majesty, if you don't wish to summon a consort, you still can't just play me like this. Consort Yu already views me as a thorn in her side. If I'm dragged back by her, I fear I won't even have the money to start a fire in the small kitchen to cook anymore. Please forgive me, Your Majesty. I came in such a rush today. I haven't bathed or groomed, and I dare not soil your holy presence. How about I simply massage your shoulders and legs and help you rest? My heart was pounding in my chest. I was scared out of my wits. I knew that if I went back to the Jinhua Palace tonight, the punishment would be far worse than just kneeling all night. I didn't actually intend to serve him in bed, but even if I just spend the night here, having the status of the first consort to spend the night, my days would surely be easier. This attendant Jiang is sensible enough, but I'm starving. I really don't want to waste time chatting with a woman. I should just send her away, hearing Huo Ye's inner thoughts. I gritted my teeth and closed my eyes, pulling out the 3 crabs I'd been hiding in my sleeve for half an hour. I brought back some items from the palace banquet today. I wonder if your majesty might be interested. When I revealed those 3 crabs, Huo Ye's eyes visibly lit up. Crabs. Attendant Jiang brought crabs back, and they're already peeled. Well, what are you waiting for? Why are you just kneeling there like a fool? Aren't you going to hand them to me? Are you waiting for me to come get them? I felt a throbbing headache hearing that. You didn't say a word, your majesty. How was I supposed to know you wanted them? You usually don't say anything at all. How is any servant supposed to know what you're thinking? I handed over the 3 crabs, watching Huo Ye eat them in such a leisurely manner. Only the thoughts in his head were going absolutely wild. So what if crab meat is cold in nature? I want to eat it, and I'm going to finish all of them in one go. That'll infuriate Wang Degui. Pity there are only 3. My belly is still not full, but it is still much better than before. Of all the people in this palace, only this Lady Jiang knows how to feed me. I should have everyone else executed one of these days. This was, I don't know how many times now, that I'd heard Huo Ye talk about executing everyone in the palace. Although I knew Huo Ye was likely just venting in frustration, I couldn't help but be terrified after all. He is the emperor. I am merely a low-ranking lady of the lowest order, and I don't have a father who is a general to back me up. If I don't serve him with the utmost care, never mind living a peaceful life, just surviving would be a struggle. Huo Ye had finished eating by now. The crab shells were tossed to the side. He sat there with his hands resting on his knees. Is Lady Jiang blind? Doesn't she know to wipe my hands? I'll kick her out in a minute. My poor heart was trembling violently. I'd kept those crabs hidden for so long, not even eating one myself, letting the emperor have them all. How could he turn on me like this after the meal, and even threaten to throw me out? I hurriedly brought over a basin of water, waited on Huo Ye as he washed his hands, and wiped them spotlessly clean with a cloth, before I dared to look up, trembling with fear. Then I shall attend to your majesty's sleep, and rest on the small couch in the outer chamber. Before Huo Ye could open his mouth to banish me, I proposed a solution first. Lady Jiang doesn't want to attend to me. She must have a lover in the palace. That thought nearly made me faint right there on the spot. Attending to him is a problem, and not attending to him is also a problem. Your majesty, if you want me dead, at least give me a quick ending. Your majesty, you have been weary from state affairs today, and you drank quite a bit of wine at the palace banquet. I am of humble status and dare not disturb your imperial rest. I only feel that my position is low to the point of being pathetic, worse than a laborer working like an ox in my past life. After all, making a mistake in the imperial palace really cost you your life. Under the scorching gaze of Huo Ye, I steeled myself for a long time before he finally spoke. Then go rest in the outer chamber. Do not speak of tonight's events to anyone else. I breathed a huge sigh of relief and immediately knelt to thank him for his grace. Rest assured, your majesty, I shall not say a single extra word. Having listened to Huo Ye's inner thoughts for so long, how could I not know what he is wary of in his heart? It is nothing more than not wanting the Empress Dowager to know that the concubine summoned for the night ended up sleeping in the outer chamber. But as I turned to leave, I heard his murmuring thoughts. I ate 3 crabs in one go today. If Wang Degui finds out, the Empress Dowager will nag at me again. Candidate Jiang doesn't seem like the type to have a loose tongue. If she dares to blabber, I'll sew her mouth shut. Cold sweat broke out on my forehead. Oh, so the emperor is worried about the Empress Dowager finding out he ate crabs. Sleeping in the outer chamber all night. I didn't sleep soundly at all. Throughout the entire night, the voices in my head never stopped. One moment he is shouting about being hungry. The next it is, these women in the harem are so annoying. If only they could all just drop dead together. And those officials, do they have to try to infuriate me to death? Always crying about the suffering of the people when I can't even get a full meal myself. Tossed about like this all night. I got up before dawn, my dark circles no better than a panda's. Before the eunuchs and maids came in to assist with the morning routine, I had already entered the inner chamber to help Huo Ye rise. Your Majesty, the time has come. It is time for court, since there is no empress currently. Besides paying respects at the Empress Dowager's palace once a month, what day don't I sleep until noon? Oh right. Occasionally, Concubine Yu likes to throw her weight around, making me kneel for a lecture early in the morning. Court starts early, so I had to get up even earlier today. As I woke Huo Ye, his sharp brows were heavy with sleep, a look of detachment as if he had seen through the world. Haha. Going to court on an empty stomach again. Why am I still alive? As I was fastening his dragon robe, I heard his nearly desperate inner voice explode. It is the rule of emperors past to take breakfast only after court, rising at 4 a.m., and not eating until 8 or 9 in the morning. The mere thought of it sounds miserable. Taking advantage of when Huo Ye had just rinsed his mouth, I quietly cleared the apricot cakes from the table in the outer hall, wrapped a few in my handkerchief, and tucked them away. I had originally intended to sneak them back to my palace as a snack, since the treats at the Hall of Mental Cultivation must be better than mine. But I had seen Huo Ye sneaking several glances at them, and because Wang Degui was still there serving, he couldn't make a move, Your Majesty. Your court beads seem to be slightly crooked. I stepped forward, blocking Wang Degui's line of sight, and slipped the handkerchief-wrapped cakes into Huo Ye's palm. The morning court is long, please take care of your health, Your Majesty. My words came out quite nonsensical, but when Huo Ye felt the soft, delicate pastry in his palm, his pupils widened visibly. What is this? Could it be apricot cake? Jiang, your consideration warms my heart. Those ministers are so long-winded. I can sneak a couple of bites while they drone on, and won't have to go hungry until my legs go weak this morning. Yes, Huo Ye's sudden burst of delight caught me off guard. Just a few apricot cakes could make the emperor this happy. Just how starved must the poor child have been? Promote Attendant Jiang to first-class attendant titled Zhuang, and have the Imperial Household Department send more rewards. I had just pulled my hand back when I heard this wonderful news dropped on me. Though a higher rank isn't necessarily a good thing for me, at least the rank of first-class attendant is still quite low. The important part is the rewards. With rewards, life will be much easier from now on. Thank you, Your Majesty, I exclaimed overjoyed. As I knelt to express my gratitude, I couldn't stop the corners of my mouth from curling up. As Huo Ye set off for court, I stared at his back and heard the voice in his head start up again. Now that I've bestowed rewards upon her, she should know to send more food to me, right? If she doesn't even have that much sense, I'll just demote her again tonight. I curled my lip, muttering to myself that this emperor has nothing on his mind but food. Congratulations, first-class attendant Zhuang. You are the first concubine the emperor has ever favored. Wang Degui is a man who knows when to advance or retreat. He saw that Huo Ye was showing me special favor. The promotion ceremony hasn't even been held yet, and you've already changed how you address me. However, as soon as he turned his head, Wang Degui looked at the empty tray on the table in the outer chamber and let out a curious, "Oh, weren't those apricot blossom cakes just brought in? How are they already empty?" I licked my lips awkwardly. Well, I was feeling a bit hungry just now, so I finished them off. Although Wang Degui was puzzled, he just smiled and played along. Lady Zhuang has a good appetite if you like them. I shall have the Imperial Kitchen send over a few more plates. Then I will trouble you, Eunuch Wang. Although I am not considered a favored consort yet, at least I managed to become the first one to serve the emperor. The head eunuch is falling over himself to please me if I don't know how to play the game. Once Huo Ye loses interest in me later on, I won't have such good treatment anymore. When I returned to the palace today, I was carried back in a palanquin. As I passed by other palaces, the way they stared at me made it look like they wanted to tear me apart. The hour is still early, but the news of my promotion to Changzai has already spread throughout the palace. I've been in the palace for 3 years, and for 3 years these people have treated me like a pushover. After 3 years of torment, they have all been sharpening their wits, desperate to climb higher. But who would have thought that the one who finally climbed into the imperial bed would be me, the one they look down upon the most, promoted in just one night and even granted a title. If I am allowed to show my face before the emperor a few more times, she won't be able to handle it in Jinhua Palace. Consort Yu had been summoned by the noble consort Jia early this morning to be berated. The subject was nothing more than her poor discipline, allowing even a lowly Xuanxi to stand out and catch the emperor's eye. Now, Consort Yu sits in her palace, her face dark and gloomy as she waits for me to return from my night with the emperor. Noble consort Jia has given the order, telling her to discipline me properly. Changzai Jiang pays her respects to Consort Yu since it was my first time serving him. The rules dictated that I pay my respects to the head of the palace immediately upon my return. I am kneeling on the ground now, enduring the murderous look in Consort Yu's eyes, and for some reason, it all feels wrong. I've been promoted. I am technically an official consort now. Surely Consort Yu wouldn't dare try to deal with me, right? Well, Jiang Huan, I never realized that you were such a conniving little vixen. Consort Yu, you exaggerate. I would never dare. I bowed my head. I still dare not breathe too loudly. Why does it feel like my promotion didn't really change anything at all? Crying, go teach Changzai Zhuang a lesson on the rules. Concubine Yu commanded through gritted teeth. I saw Kuai rubbing her wrists as she stepped forward. My entire body began to shake like a sieve. Although I've only been transmigrated into this book for 3 months, I inherited quite a few of the original owner's memories. In the past, whenever Concubine Yu was in a bad mood, she would have Kuai beat me to vent her frustration. Since I arrived, I have been careful and stayed out of trouble. Though my food and clothing were restricted and I was occasionally punished by kneeling, I had never suffered the indignity of being beaten. Before Kuai could get close, Xiao Zhao spread her arms, protecting me as if she were a mother hen. Concubine Yu, please be careful. Our Changzai Zhuang still has to deliver food to the Emperor later. If the Emperor sees her like this, it won't be easy to explain. Cold sweat streamed down my head. I understood that Xiao Zhao meant well and was trying to protect me. On the way back, I had mentioned to Xiao Zhao that we needed to prepare extra food for the Emperor today. She had taken it to heart, but the way this silly girl said it out loud sounded so much like a threat. Sure enough, the next second Concubine Yu stood up, grinding her teeth. You dare to threaten me? One night of service and you've become full of yourself. You're even thinking of flaunting yourself before the Emperor? Concubine Yu looked left and right, then simply pushed Kuai aside. Wearing her heavy nail guards, she slapped me hard across the face. My cheek immediately turned bright red. Changzai Zhuang, you should be content with your fleeting favor. You think you can just show your face to the Emperor like this? Today's order came directly from noble consort Jaya. Even if you were delivering food to the heavenly king himself, you would still have to endure this for me. Pass on the order without my permission. Jiang Huan is not allowed to step 1 foot out of Jinhua Palace. When I returned to my own west side hall, I felt as though the sky were collapsing. Coming back from this pretend service really doesn't seem like a good thing at all. It is one thing that Concubine Yu won't let up on me, but now noble consort Jia holds a grudge against me too. And now that I'm forbidden from leaving Jinhua Palace, it is even more impossible to deliver food to the Emperor. I expect that by tomorrow morning, the order for my demotion will arrive. Xiao Zhao was anxiously applying medicine to my face. Don't worry, my lady, just prepare the food in peace. I will take it to the Emperor later tonight, and I will certainly help bring him to you. To deal with Concubine Yu for abusing her power, Xiao Zhao promised me, patting her chest with conviction. I slowly reached out to stop her hand. Xiao Zhao, don't do this. Promise me not to speak to them in the future. Leave the talking to me. If not for that fool's threats earlier, perhaps I could have avoided a slap. But looking at Xiao Zhao's reddened eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say a word of blame. I can only blame my own incompetence. If only my rank were higher and I held power, no one would dare touch Xiao Zhao no matter what she said. At the Hall of Mental Cultivation, stacks of memorials rose like mountains. Huo Ye, who had been full of vigor at first, now had an empty, vacant gaze. The apricot cakes I gave him this morning had long been finished. Breakfast had been a meal of cold rice. Lunch was just plain porridge and greens. And dinner was no exception to this healthy diet. At the thought that his stomach would suffer again tonight, Huo Ye's expression grew even grimmer. Has Changzai Zhuang not come yet? Huo Ye glanced at the sky outside. It was nearly time for dinner. This Changzai Zhuang truly had no awareness at all. It was so late and she didn't even know to bring him something to eat. Wang Degyi smiled from the side. If your majesty wishes to see Changzai Zhuang, I shall go and summon her for you. No need, Huo Ye replied with a cold face, his voice sounding even sharper than before. The smile on Wang Degyi's face froze. He dared not make another sound. Having followed the Emperor for so long, he still couldn't grasp his temperament at all. One moment he was longing for someone, the next he refused to see them. Huo Ye rubbed his stomach through his dragon robe, feeling as if he didn't even have the strength to lose his temper. At this moment, what lay before him was not a memorial, but a bowl full of plump white rice balls. The fermented rice wine was rich. The rice balls were fresh and sweet. The flavor was mellow. Damn it. I will demote Changzai Zhuang tonight. Your Majesty, Concubine Yu is here. Huo Ye was in a foul mood right then. Wang Degyi felt his heart race as he stepped forward to report. Tell her to get lost. Wang Degyi swallowed hard and gathered his courage to speak again. Concubine Yu says that Lady Zhuang is feeling unwell, and she has come to deliver something on her behalf today. Huo Ye's ears perked up, and he immediately set down his vermilion brush. Though his expression remained as cold and unmoving as ever, send her in. Wang Degyi's face lit up with a smile. Very well. As he turned, Wang Degyi made a mental note of it. Lady Zhuang currently held the greatest favor, and mentioning her name was exceptionally effective. Concubine Yu. His Majesty has summoned you. Concubine Yu beamed with joy, then motioned for Kuai to bring the food box into the hall of mental cultivation. Your Majesty, I prepared some rice balls today, and knowing how busy you are with state affairs, I brought them over immediately. Huo Ye's gaze flickered for a brief moment. Then he deliberately avoided the food box. Proceed. A small bowl was handed into Huo Ye's grasp. He felt a wave of disappointment. The bowl was mostly broth with only 4 small rice balls, each no bigger than an eyeball. Was Lady Zhuang being stingy with the ingredients? The ones from yesterday were clearly the size of half a fist. He popped one into his mouth, but Huo Ye's tightly furrowed brow did not relax in the slightest. The taste was wrong. It was nothing like what Lady Zhuang had brought yesterday. Yet, even though it wasn't delicious, the starving Huo Ye forced himself to be patient. Pretending to eat slowly, it is acceptable. I still have state affairs to attend to. You may return. Concubine Yu. Concubine Yu's hands trembled with excitement, and her gaze fixed on Huo Ye with burning intensity. Your Majesty, I wonder if Lady Zhuang pleased you yesterday. She hadn't been in the palace long, but she hasn't even learned a fraction of my skills. I have prepared a surprise in my quarters. I wonder if Your Majesty. Huo Ye listened, his fingertips tapping incessantly on the memorial. So, Lady Zhuang's skills, were they learned from Concubine Yu? And this bowl of rice balls, was it also meant to tease my appetite? Fine. Go back and wait. Although Huo Ye's tone was not gentle, it still left Concubine Yu overjoyed. It sounds like His Majesty intends to visit her quarters for the night. If it weren't for the strict court etiquette, Concubine Yu would be skipping all the way back to her palace. Mistress, His Majesty has gone to Concubine Yu's place. Xiao Zhao was applying ointment to my cheek, her little mouth pouting in anger. Let him go. What does that have to do with us? I spoke, feeling utterly listless. Concubine Yu delivered food to His Majesty for me, and now she has won his favor for the night. She'll probably parade every rare delicacy she can find. This new favor I've gained is likely just a flash in the pan, doomed to vanish by tomorrow. Instead of wasting energy being jealous of Concubine Yu, I should be thinking about how to survive. Xiao Zhao, did you manage to buy that iron pot I asked for? I'm hungry, my dear mistress. What time is it? You're still thinking about food. Hearing me bring up that iron pot again. Xiao Zhao was pacing in a flustered state. If Concubine Yu secures his favor now, she'll be acting even more arrogant in your face. I rested my chin in my hand and watched her calmly. Then hurry up and bring the iron pot over. Xiao Zhao looked devastated. She couldn't fathom why her mistress was so impossibly stubborn. I, however, looked up at the sky and sighed. I'm grounded now. What else can I do? Should I weep and throw a tantrum? If I go begging Huo Ye, I'd likely have a silken cord around my neck before I'd even wiped my tears away, since I can't leave anyway. I might as well fill my stomach. As I said this, I picked up another piece of pastry from the plate and stuffed it into my mouth, my cheeks bulging like a squirrel hoarding nuts. Xiao Zhao still wore a bitter expression, staring at me with desperate, pleading eyes. I had to pull out my final trump card. If I don't eat, I'll get thin and haggard. Won't that just make Concubine Yu laugh herself silly? When the Emperor sees I've become a sallow-faced crone and sends me to the cold palace in a fit of pique, our lives will be ruined. Though I said that, I wasn't actually thinking that at all. I have no desire to win the Emperor's favor. In my past life, I watched enough shows to know how many women in the imperial harem died fighting for it. I'm just here to drift through life. Palace intrigue. No, that is not for me. I'd much rather the Emperor simply forget I exist. Let me stay in this small palace, cooking a few things in the small kitchen with Xiao Zhao every day. That would be more than enough for me. Xiao Zhao's eyes flickered, swayed by my words. She finally agreed to take me to see the iron pot I had been dreaming of. Once I entered the small kitchen, I was truly in my element. I looked at the iron pot Xiao Zhao had bought back. I was quite satisfied. Xiao Zhao, go fetch a fat goose. I'm going to make iron pot stewed goose today. Xiao Zhao scurried off efficiently upon hearing this. In no time, she returned carrying a round, plump goose. I took the goose from her, my technique as proficient as if I'd been a cook for years. My lady, if you were outside the palace, you could definitely open a top-tier restaurant. Xiao Zhao's eyes sparkled. I couldn't even get a word in edgewise. She showered me with admiration, which I found quite gratifying. My hands moved swiftly. I had taken very good care of myself, even before I transmigrated into this book. If you're going to suffer, don't let it be your stomach. The iron pot glowed red over the fire. I poured in a few spoonfuls of fragrant oil. The oil droplets danced joyfully in the pot. I added the chopped goose meat into the pot, stir-frying it with a spatula. The goose meat hissed in the pot, The aroma began to fill the kitchen. A quarter of an hour later, I lifted the lid. The steaming iron pot stewed goose gave off an enticing scent. I ladled the stewed goose into a large basin and sprinkled a handful of chopped cilantro on top. As for the rice, ever since I transmigrated, I've often had Xiao Zhao join me for our meals. Xiao Zhao had long since grown accustomed to my recent changes. She brought over 2 bowls of white rice and sat at the small low table in the kitchen to eat with me. Xiao Zhao couldn't wait to pick up a piece of goose meat. She took a bite. "My lady, this goose meat is so tender." I also picked up a piece of goose and took a gentle bite. "This iron pot stew really hits the spot." Xiao Zhao ate with gusto, alternating between meat and rice. Her cheeks were puffed out. "My lady, this iron pot stew you made. If the emperor were to taste it, he would definitely love it." Thinking of the emperor's inner thoughts on this day, I silently took another large bite of the goose meat. Not even a warm meal to be had, with my stomach feeling empty all the time. Honestly, there isn't really anything good about being the emperor. The mistress and her servants sat at the small table, eating and chatting, feeling completely at ease. Meanwhile, Concubine Yu finally managed to talk to the emperor because of a bowl of Tang Yuan. She didn't care to pay me any attention at all, only calculating how to gain more imperial favor. The next day, just as the sky was beginning to brighten, Concubine Yu, attended to by Kuai, had finished her morning toilet. Without a word, she excitedly took her people to the kitchen. When the kitchen staff saw this, they set down their work and knelt to pay their respects. "Your servants greet Concubine Yu." Concubine Yu held her chin high and didn't even glance at them, clearly not wanting to waste a word on these people. Kuai stepped forward and gestured for the kitchen staff to leave. "That will be all. All of you leave." How could the servants dare to disobey the order of their superior? They immediately acknowledged the command and left the kitchen. Only Concubine Yu and Kuai remained in the kitchen. Concubine Yu had come to the kitchen to cook before, so she was generally familiar with where the ingredients were stored. She instructed Kuai to bring over some glutinous rice flour, washed her own hands, and prepared to start making the Tang Yuan. Seeing this, Kuai quickly said, "My lady, you are of noble and precious status. Let this servant handle such a minor task." No. Concubine Yu shook her head firmly. This was her future, and she didn't trust anyone else to handle it. Thinking of yesterday when she sent the Tang Yuan to the emperor, and his reaction, Concubine Yu's mouth curled high, feeling exceptionally proud in her heart. "Since the emperor likes the Tang Yuan I made, of course I must make them with my own hands. Only this can show my true sincerity. My lady speaks wisely." Kuai flattered her with a smile from the side. "How could this servant's skill possibly compare to yours? It was silly of me to suggest it." Concubine Yu was in a good mood and didn't argue with Kuai, focusing solely on making the Tang Yuan. Kuai stood by to help, never forgetting to praise her. "My lady, your craftsmanship is truly exquisite. Even your Tang Yuan are made so delicately." Concubine Yu felt satisfied, and her movements became lighter. A quarter of an hour later, a bowl of Tang Yuan was successfully prepared. She carried the prepared Tang Yuan, returned to her chambers, and tidied herself up well, before setting off with Kuai toward the Hall of Mental Cultivation. Wang Digui learned of Concubine Yu's intention, and went inside to report it to Huo Ye. Huo Ye merely lifted his eyelids slightly, his expression cold and indifferent. He had just finished the morning court session, and hadn't eaten anything. Concubine Yu had come at just the right time. Admit her. Concubine Yu received the summons outside the door, smoothed her hair, and took the Tang Yuan from Kuai. With a charming face and swaying waist, she walked into the room. "Your Majesty, I have boiled some Tang Yuan with a different filling, thinking that since you have just finished court, you have yet to dine. So I brought them over immediately." Huo Ye nodded faintly and gestured with his chin toward Wang Digui. After Wang Digui tested each one with a silver needle, he placed them before Huo Ye. "Your Majesty, please partake." Huo Ye took the small bowl. These Tang Yuan looked slightly larger than the last batch. He popped one into his mouth. The filling was too sweet, and the skin was a bit thick. "What is this? Getting more perfunctory by the day." Even though he didn't like them, having been hungry since the morning session, Huo Ye still finished the few Tang Yuan in the bowl. Passable. It was still the same two-word review, devoid of any waves of emotion. Yet it made Concubine Yu even more convinced that the emperor truly loved eating Tang Yuan, especially when made by her own hand. Otherwise, why hadn't she seen the emperor mention Chongzai Zhuang? "I am glad your Majesty enjoys them." A glimmer of joy flashed in Concubine Yu's eyes, and the curve of her lips deepened a little. So it turned out to be this simple to earn the emperor's favor. It seemed she should strike while the iron was hot and cook more for the emperor. Upon returning to her palace, Concubine Yu was full of confidence, and at noon, she prepared more dishes to send to the emperor. The taste was average, but they had the advantage of being hot. "This chopstick of food is hot. That chopstick is also hot." Huo Ye reached for the dishes repeatedly, eating with elegant, slow movements. This is how it should be. He is the emperor, the son of heaven. Only prison food should be served cold. Concubine Yu smiled softly. Your Majesty, if you like these, I can prepare your meals personally this evening. Huo Ye lowered his eyes. Could it be because I haven't summoned Concubine Yu? Is that why she is intentionally holding back and refusing to show her true skills? Thinking of the sweet dumplings she made that day, Huo Ye felt like tasting just how good this Concubine Yu's cooking really is. Huo Ye set down his chopsticks and wiped his hands with the towel handed to him by a eunuch. Tonite, come to the Hall of Mental Cultivation. Concubine Yu was wild with joy at these words, yet she maintained her composure on the surface and softly replied, Yes, your Majesty. Soon night fell. Concubine Yu stood before the bronze mirror, carefully grooming herself, determined to show her most beautiful side to Huo Ye. My lady, you look truly beautiful. The emperor will surely love it. Kuai praised her repeatedly from the side. Concubine Yu smiled slightly, a trace of triumph in her eyes. Kuai, go and bring that plate of sweet and sour pork ribs over here. Kuai immediately complied and brought over a plate of glossy red-glazed sweet and sour ribs. After everything was prepared, a eunuch from the Imperial Household Department arrived to announce that Concubine Yu was to attend to the emperor. Concubine Yu took the cloak from Kuai, shrouding her glimpses of exposed skin within the garment. Then, carrying the food box, followed the eunuch toward the Hall of Mental Cultivation. Along the way, Concubine Yu's mood grew increasingly buoyant, a confident smile gracing her face, as if she had already foreseen the night's success. Within the Hall of Mental Cultivation, the scent of dragon incense curled in the air. As Concubine Yu crossed the threshold with the food box, she deliberately removed her cloak and tugged her thin gauze outer garment down by half an inch. She had specifically scented herself today with the acacia perfume tribute from the western regions. The cloying fragrance mingled with the savory sauce of the pork ribs, making even Wang Degi frown. Your Majesty. Concubine Yu drawled in a long, lingering tone, swaying her body as she approached Huo Ye. I have prepared these sweet and sour pork ribs myself. Please, have a taste. As the porcelain plate was pushed onto the desk, Concubine Yu, in her graceful movement, wasn't careful, and sauce splattered onto the memorial, staining several characters a dark brownish color. Huo Ye frowned almost imperceptibly, staring at that plate of glistening, greasy ribs. He set the memorial down, leaned back, and rested against the redwood chair. Did Concubine Yu fall into a siesta and then bathe in perfume 10 times over? It is enough to give him a headache. Yet, Huo Ye cast a fleeting glance. It landed coldly on that bowl of sweet and sour pork. How does it compare to the cooking skills of Attendant Jiang? For the sake of a good meal, Huo Ye endured it again and again. He picked up his chopsticks, took a piece, and bit down. Sugar glaze mingled with the rank, gamey meat, exploding in his mouth. Huo Ye's Adam's apple bobbed with great difficulty. His taste buds were bombed, and his eyes went wide with shock. Is this even something a human could make? It's the first time I've encountered something worse than the Imperial kitchen's leftovers. Is this woman an assassin? Heavens, what have I done wrong? Why must I suffer like this? Concubine Yu, however, was completely oblivious. Her fingertips had already reached for Huo Ye's jade belt. Your Majesty, you are exhausted from affairs of state. Let me massage your shoulders. She leaned in deliberately. Her clothes slipped off her shoulders. A pink bodice was half exposed from her loose collar. Snap. The ivory chopsticks hit the table not too hard, but with a crisp sound, Huo Ye stood up slowly. The moonlight and candlelight intertwined, making his already tall figure appear even more majestic and domineering. Concubine Yu was caught off guard, looking into his icy, sharp eyes. She shuddered in fear. Wang Degi. Huo Ye didn't even look at her, turning his back with a flick of his sleeves. Throw this filthy thing out along with the plate. Concubine Yu was horrified. She couldn't understand why the emperor's attitude had changed so suddenly. Your Majesty, please show mercy. I do not know where I have offended your Majesty. She crawled a few steps toward Huo Ye, reaching out to grab his robes. Huo Ye swept his hem away, stepping back coldly. Veins were already bulging on his forehead. If you don't leave, do you wish to die here? Concubine Yu lunged at nothing. Upon hearing this final warning, she froze there, pale as a sheet and shaking like a leaf. Huo Ye showed not a shred of pity. Wang Degui, are you deaf? Wang Degui trembled with fear, repeatedly saying yes and hurriedly summoned people. Concubine Yu was dragged out of the Hall of Mental Cultivation by two stout matrons. Her hair was disheveled and her skirt was stained with sauce. She even lost one of her embroidered shoes somewhere. A eunuch on night watch passed by carrying a lantern. The dim light made her wretched state impossible to hide. This commotion was too loud, especially in a palace where every move is under scrutiny. By the next day, word of Consort Yu's night at the palace spread like wildfire. Have you heard? Consort Yu's ribs disgusted the emperor so much he threw up. That is not all. Rumor has it she even tried to seduce him, and the emperor kicked her out ruthlessly. The emperor hasn't visited the harem in so long, yet she thought she was the exception. How tragic. In the West Hall, I was roasting sweet potatoes over the coals. Xiao Zhao was beside me, recounting the gossip with great excitement, her joy practically written all over her face. My lady, I also heard that when Consort Yu was dragged back, her sheer outer garment was torn to shreds. A truly pathetic sight. I silently pity Consort Yu. Tell me, of all people to provoke, why go after that temperamental emperor? Isn't that just asking for trouble? I don't know. I just kept roasting the sweet potato. Keep these comments between us. And make sure nobody else hears you. Xiao Zhao giggled in response. Don't worry, my lady. I know better. Meanwhile, Huo Ye did not share the servant's lighthearted mood. His stomach was twisted with hunger, yet the desk was piled with cold vegetarian dishes. Yellowed greens floated in a murky broth, and the tofu had an eerie grayish hue. He is the emperor. Why must he be forced to eat this? Are the funds for the imperial kitchen being wasted on nothing? Is someone embezzling from the national treasury, stealing so much that they can't even afford him a hot meal? Huo Ye rubbed his temples, enduring it, and picked up some greens to eat. The bland taste made his silver chopsticks tremble in his grip. The image of the rice balls I held that night surfaced in his mind. Several days have passed. Noble Lady Zhuang should be fully recovered by now, right? Perhaps it is time he summoned her again. Consort Yu was deeply upset after the incident at the Hall of Mental Cultivation, and threw a massive tantrum in the Jinhua Palace. Fearing that Consort Yu might actually fall ill from anger, cajoled and coaxed her, eventually convincing her to go to the Imperial Garden for some air. Unfortunately, they hadn't gone far before they ran into Consort Li. Consort Li squinted at Consort Yu, who was supported by Kuai-ing, and deliberately said loudly, "Oh, isn't this little sister Yu from Jinhua Palace? I heard that yesterday you could barely even stand outside the Hall of Mental Cultivation, and yet today you have enough strength to be out for a stroll." Concubine Yu refused to be outdone. Sister Li, your sources are certainly well informed. You spend all day lurking by the palace gates, eavesdropping on every whisper. Be careful, or the wind might just blow your face out of shape. If you're truly that idle, why not copy a few more Buddhist scriptures to honor the Empress Dowager? That way, you won't have to spend your days staring at others. Anyon, who didn't know better, might think you were jealous of my favor with the emperor. Concubine Li had been feuding with noble consort Jia for a decade, and she loathed anyone mentioning the word favor. Years ago, noble consort Jia had remarked that with her looks, she saved the emperor the trouble of gifting her cosmetics. That had made her the laughingstock of the 6 palaces, and now this lowly servant Concubine Yu dared to step on her sore spot. Concubine Li snapped her fan shut, and a dark gloom settled in her eyes. Little sister, your tongue is sharper than vinegar-soaked pork ribs. Perhaps it wasn't the food that disgusted the emperor, but you yourself, sister. Mind your words. Concubine Yu dug her nails deep into her palms, while wearing an even more charming smile. Yet, there was a trace of coldness in her voice. Regardless, I am still better off than you, sister. You barely see the emperor's face even once. Your name plaque from the Imperial Household Department is practically covered in dust. I happen to have some high-quality feather dusters here. Perhaps I should lend them to you for a little cleaning. Concubine Li's expression soured. There is no need. Even if I am not in favor, it is still better than a common sparrow thinking she has flown onto a branch to become a phoenix. Concubine Yu finally lost her composure. Her voice turned shrill. I was only being sincere, yet you insist on twisting my words. No wonder you are so disliked. Seeing her rudeness, Concubine Li fired back sincerity. If it were true sincerity, you wouldn't have caused such a scene last night. Concubine Yu, are you trying to create trouble for the emperor? Or are you just digging your own grave? Concubine Yu was so infuriated by Concubine Ellie's words she could barely speak. But because it was true that she had lost face the previous night, she struggled to come up with a clever retort. Unwilling to be humiliated further, she gritted her teeth and turned to leave. But Concubine Li's voice called her back. Concubine Yu, don't be in such a hurry. I also wanted to ask, when the emperor had you thrown out last night, did you really lose one of your shoes? If you're so curious, sister, why don't you go to the entrance of the Hall of Mental Cultivation and pick it up yourself? Consort Yu scoffed. You really do have a sharp tongue. I'd like to see how much longer you can act so arrogant. Once noble consort Jia can no longer protect you. Consort Li was shaking with fury. Then I won't trouble you to worry about it, sister. Consort Yu adjusted her hair and brushed past Consort Li. The two parted on bad terms. Consort Yu returned to Jinhua Palace with Kuai-ing. Feeling frustrated and pent up, she smashed half the porcelain in the room, letting her anger out. Meanwhile, In the west side hall, I crouched in front of the stove, rubbing the last bit of dusty flour from the bottom of the sack between my fingertips, feeling like crying. I could endure being out of favor. I could endure the beatings and insults, but I couldn't endure going hungry. Xiao Zhao held the empty jar and timidly approached, her face full of misery. My lady, the rice jar is empty too. Xiao Zhao, heaven is going to be the death of me. I looked up at the sky and sighed, resigned to my fate as I rolled up my sleeves and pried open the clay pot in the corner, pulling out half a piece of salt-cured meat wrapped in a lotus leaf, and grabbing the few scallions I'd been growing in a small basin. Let's just make do with this for now. I won't have the strength to think of a solution unless I'm full. Looking at the pitiful ingredients I'd scraped together, I wore a grim expression, grabbing the pot to start cooking. When the sizzling hot meat pies came out of the pot, Xiao Zhao was drooling. It smells so good. It smells even better than the food I used to smell in the Imperial kitchen. I twitched the corner of my mouth, remembering the bland food sent from the Imperial kitchen to Huo Ye's table. Comparing them, of course it smells better. It is just a shame we're out of ingredients, or I could have really shown what I can do. Let's eat. I sighed and set the plate of pies on the table. If this were in the past, I would have at least plated it nicely, but now, I glanced at the drafty window lattice and gave a dry laugh in my heart. Forget it. I'm not in the mood. Mistress and servant sat by the low table and began to eat. The crispy crust shattered between our teeth, and the savory, oily meat juices instantly filled our mouths. Xiao Zhao kept gasping as the heat burned her tongue, but she couldn't bear to spit out the mouthful of pie. But as soon as she realized our ingredients were all used up, Xiao Zhao's face instantly fell. Sigh, what a real pity. If only we could bypass Consort Yubin and buy our own ingredients. Who knows when I'll get to taste the mistress's cooking again. Xiao Zhao's words gave me an idea, and a light bulb went off. I had a plan in mind. Who says we can't get them? Xiao Zhao's eyes widened in an instant. She didn't even care about the meat pie in her hand anymore. Does the mistress have a way? I blinked at Xiao Zhao and said with a knowing smile, there are so many people in the palace. Who says we have to go buy the ingredients ourselves? Xiao Zhao immediately grasped the meaning of my words. The mistress wants to find someone to buy them for us, thinking about how she could still eat my cooking in the future. Xiao Zhao was instantly overjoyed, but before she could even be happy for a second, worry clouded her face again. But who would be willing to help us? The other mistresses in the harem love to bully you, and the servants in those palaces don't give us the time of day either. I saw through Xiao Zhao's concerns immediately, and coaxed her gently. Where in the palace has the most ingredients? Xiao Zhao had a sudden realization. The Imperial kitchen. The Imperial kitchen is responsible for the Emperor's meals, so the palace concubines can hardly interfere. But we have no family connections, nor any favors to trade, so what would we bribe them with? Xiao Zhao was terribly distressed, thinking it was completely impossible, mistress. That Imperial kitchen is full of perks, and we are poor as church mice, don't be naive. I tapped Xiao Zhao lightly on the forehead and smiled cunningly. Who said bribes have to be made with money? I took a bite of the pie and beckoned Xiao Zhao over. Xiao Zhao leaned in, full of suspicion. I immediately shared my scheme with her. Xiao Zhao's eyes grew brighter the more she heard. Excited, Xiao Zhao jumped to her feet. I'll go right now. I looked up at the suddenly towering Xiao Zhao and waved her down. What is the rush? The person isn't going anywhere. Eat first. But no buts, I interrupted Xiao Zhao. I pulled her back down to sit and shoved another meat pie into her hand. Look at this golden, fragrant meat pie. Are you really willing to give it up? Xiao Zhao couldn't bear to. Xiao Zhao chooses to sit down and eat the cake, and I am quite satisfied to see this. I follow suit, eating a piece of the cake at a leisurely pace. This is delicious. I really have quite the skill. After we have both eaten our fill, Xiao Zhao tidies everything up. She leaves the west side hall and begins to loiter near the Imperial kitchen. She quietly observes the palace servants coming and going from the kitchen, carefully vetting potential targets according to my instructions. However, before Xiao Zhao can even make her choice, someone actually approaches her first. A fair-skinned, kind-faced, somewhat chubby young eunuch walks up to Xiao Zhao. A routine inquiry. Which palace are you from? What is your name? What are you doing around here? Xiao Zhao does not answer immediately, carefully sizing up the person before her. This build, these conditions. It fits the perfect candidate my mistress described perfectly. However, with people coming and going nearby, this is not a place to talk. Xiao Zhao glances left and right secretively, then whispers, Eunuch, could we step aside to speak? Deshan looks at Xiao Zhao with curiosity, wondering what she wants to do. What is it? I can't say it here. Seeing that Deshan is unwilling to follow her, Xiao Zhao lowers her head and glances at Deshan's stomach. Pulling an oil paper parcel from her robes, Eunuch, the reason I came here is that I need your help with something. If you are willing, I would like to offer this delicacy to you. Deshan reacts as if he has heard something laughable. Please, this is the imperial kitchen. What kind of incredible delicacy could this little maid possibly have? It is like trying to show off a sword in front of Guan Yu. Besides, he is the junior apprentice of Wang Degui and spends most of his time running to the imperial kitchen, handling tasks like delivering dishes to the emperor. He has tasted every delicacy, so Deshan is unimpressed. No matter how good your food is, can it be better than what we have in the imperial kitchen? Xiao Zhao answers with certainty. Of course it can. Why don't you have a small taste and you'll see? Seeing that she doesn't seem to be joking, Deshan is somewhat surprised. He gives Xiao Zhao a few skeptical looks. His curiosity immediately piqued. Since he has nothing else to do for the moment, he follows Xiao Zhao to a secluded spot nearby. What kind of delicacy is it? Let me see, eunuch. Xiao Zhao no longer held back. Under Deshan's expectant gaze, she opened the oil paper package. The golden meat pie had lost its heat, limp and resting on a lotus leaf. The anticipation in Deshan's eyes vanished instantly. He snorted through his nose. Is that all? Xiao Zhao, seeing his disdain, spoke quickly. Eunuch, don't look down on this pie. It tastes truly wonderful. Thinking that since he had come this far, it wouldn't hurt to have a bite to fill his stomach, Deshan picked up the meat pie and took a bite. It would be a good way to dismiss this little maid and keep her from pestering him further. Although it had already gone cold, the crust was still crispy and delicious. The rich aroma of the meat filling spread through his mouth. Deshan was taken aback. Then his eyes lit up and he couldn't help but take another bite. He had never tasted anything this good before. One bite followed another. Seeing Deshan hooked on the food, Xiao Zhao seized the opportunity and suddenly snatched away the remaining half. Oh dear, eunuch, you really shouldn't be eating this. How can such coarse food be worthy of your lips? Wait a moment. With the meat pie gone from his mouth, Deshan immediately grabbed her wrist. When he met Xiao Zhao's sly, smiling eyes, he realized he had lost his composure and hurried to cover it with a cough. I was just afraid of wasting food. Xiao Zhao knew she had half succeeded. She had said her mistress's cooking was the best in the world, and no one could resist it. She readily handed the pie back to Deshan. Only after he had finished the entire pie did she speak in a leisurely manner. How is it? Eunuch, was I wrong? As the saying goes, one who eats the food of others is beholden to them, and one who accepts favors must be soft-spoken. Deshan's attitude toward Xiao Zhao had lost its initial impatience. Tell me, what is it you want me to help you with? Upon hearing this, Xiao Zhao said immediately, Eunuch, it is like this. My name is Xiao Zhao. I am a maid serving Mistress Cheng. I would like to ask you to help me buy some ingredients. Deshan was curious. You, a maid serving by your mistress's side. What do you need ingredients for? Eunuch, there is much you do not know. Xiao Zhao's face fell as she spoke. My mistress is strictly deprived of everything daily and has to watch everyone's face just to survive in this palace. She even has to cook her own meals. But now that she has been confined for days, there isn't a single grain of rice or flour left. The meat pancake I gave you today was our very last bit of food. Xiao Zhao sobbed pathetically, rubbing her sleeves against her face, rubbing her eyelids until they were beet red 2 days ago. When my mistress cooked porridge, she had to use an embroidery needle to fish out every single grain of rice. Then, lifting her skirt to show him, and look at my clothes. There is a huge hole where the grease stains were. Just take a look yourself. The rats were so hungry they even gnawed my hem as if it were a pancake. She sniffled loudly and pulled out a handkerchief to blow her nose with a deafening honk. You must see the truth, sir. If things go on like this, my mistress won't even be able to afford to keep rats anymore. Deshan listened for a long while, feeling quite bewildered. Is there really a consort in this palace living that miserably? Considering that meat pancake, he decided he could help a little, but not too blatantly. All right. Stop crying so miserably. The imperial kitchen has some scallions and noodles left. Do you want them? Is that all there is? That is all. Deshan answered firmly. He was not the steward of the imperial kitchen. Getting these supplies was already a favor. Xiao Zhao didn't believe him. How could a massive imperial kitchen only have these few things? She wanted to ask for more, but Deshan insisted that was all there was. With no other choice, Xiao Zhao wore a dejected look, but eventually took the scallions and noodles anyway. After all, something is better than nothing. After securing the food from the imperial kitchen, Xiao Zhao didn't dare linger outside for long, fearing complications that might cause her to lose these precious rations. Consort Yu stood behind a tree with Kuai-ing, and seeing Xiao Zhao acting like a thief, she sneered coldly. She had only taken her eyes off noble Lady Zhuang for a few days. What kind of trouble is that West Side Palace causing now? Kuai-ing, go and take a look. See what she is being so sneaky about. Kuai-ing acknowledged the order and immediately followed her.